Hi, I'm the Director for Common Knowledge Trust, and we house the Birthing Better Childbirth Preparation skills. I'm of the generation of women who led the VBAC revolution. In the 60s and 70s, when we had cesareans, there was only a 4.5% cesarean rate, and those cesareans were really medically necessary. Those of us who had cesareans felt lucky that we lived in a modern world with modern health care where we could have one. Yet, when we got pregnant a second time, often the problem that had caused us to have a cesarean the first time didn't exist. So some of us wanted to try to have a vaginal birth. There were no choices back then. We had to fight. It was called a trial of labor, and there were risks. When we had cesareans, we were cut from our pubic bone to our navel. We were left with an ugly scar and a uterus that was cut, the muscles were cut up and down like this. And if we had another pregnancy, there was a risk of uterine rupture, and particularly if we labored and our uterus had to contract. My sister-in-law had a uterine rupture at 9 months. She lost her baby, but she survived. So the risks were real back then. But by the middle of the 80s, everything had changed. We were wearing bikinis, and women didn't want to be left with that ugly scar. So the medical profession figured out how to do the bikini cut, the low-lying cesarean. And the advantage was that they split the muscles of the uterus this way, across this way, rather than up and down. And this made it safer for us to have a vaginal birth after a cesarean. We wanted to stay awake. We wanted our husbands with us. Oh, so many positive changes have occurred since the 1970s when Birthing Better skills began to develop. But the fact is that there are now more cesareans. 30% of the population is having a cesarean. More women feel that their cesarean was perhaps unnecessary. And so whether you feel you had a medically necessary cesarean or an unplanned one that may not have been medically necessary, you're now seeking a VBAC, and we can help you do that. The Birthing Better skills began to develop in the early 1970s as more women were seeking to have a vaginal birth after a cesarean. I happen to be a natural health practitioner that did a lot of body work with bad backs. I worked on a lot of pregnant women with bad backs and a lot of older women who felt that their bodies had been damaged by birth. I have no medical background, and the families I worked with who developed these skills were very committed to answering the great question, what is it that we can do for ourselves? And so we began to develop skills. And the first skills we developed were the common language skills that women and men could use together because we all blink, we all cough, and can tighten up our rectum. So we learned how to cope with the natural occurring pain of childbirth because back then we were having what was called a trial of labor. And 100% of cesareans were occurring during this period. So we put a lot of emphasis on coping, managing, and being able to stay on top of the natural occurring pain because we knew the medical profession had two branches of maternity care. One was to do assessments and monitor and procedures to safeguard the health and well-being of ourselves and our babies. And the second was to prevent the suffering that women had experienced for generations when they couldn't cope with the natural occurring pain, which tells us they lacked skills. So we developed the skills so that we could stay in control and on top of it. And because we shared the same body with our male partners or others, then they could help us really stay in control. But what we realized was that we actually had to go back and learn to prepare our body for birth. Because even with good coping skills to cope with that pain, some of us ended up with another cesarean. Not because there was really a medical reason, but we had a delay in dilation in the first stage, or a medical reason did begin to occur. So we then focused on preparing our pregnant body to create space and mobility and softness to let this big object out. We started at 24 weeks to prepare our pregnant body and learn the birth and birth coaching skills because that was a time when our minds were very clear And we just thoroughly enjoyed it. We were very relaxed in this golden age of pregnancy from 24 weeks to 36 weeks. We had fun, and our family just grew closer together, and our partner got more involved in our pregnancy and more involved in preparing for this trial of labor or this vaginal birth after cesarean. And what we discovered is when we prepared our body and then used the birth and birth coaching skills, we were much more likely to have a successful vaginal birth. But we discovered something much more profound. If we needed or wanted or were pressured to have another cesarean, or we had an unplanned or an emergency cesarean, we continued to use the skills because we realized this was our baby's birth, and we could skillfully birth our baby, no matter where we birthed, no matter who was present, and no matter the circumstances. This mini course is focused on working with the natural occurring pain of contractions and giving you some of the adjunct skills, and we hope you enjoy it. Our charitable trust is absolutely dedicated to growing skilled birthing families, so that they learn to prepare their body for birth and learn the birth and birth coaching skills to use in every type of birth. Every Birthing Better family birthed better. And we felt empowered by staying in control as we worked through our baby's birth journey. The memory of our skilled births are truly the benefit. So please sign up and start today.